Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellower Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. I had an embarrassing conversation the other day. Someone close to me had some sort of health scare, and it could have been the heart, and it was very worrying. Anyway, I came on the phone with this person. They were going to give me an update. And he said, I realized it might be something to do with some sort of gastric thing, and maybe that was giving me false symptoms to do with my heart. And he said, so I tried some Gaviscon. Gaviscon is a product that you can just buy over the counter here in the UK. It's for gastric problems, inflammation in the gastric tract, indigestion, if you like. Anyway, so he says I tried some, I decided to try some Gaviscon. And I, without even thinking about it, said, oh dear. And as I said it, I knew this was not the right thing to say. And this friend of mine, fortunately, knows how to deal with me in those moments. And he said, Catherine, what I don't need from you is your anti-Western medicine nonsense. I just need you to listen while I give you the update. And I was absolutely mortified. I said, I'm so sorry. I should not have said that. Can we start again? And we started again. And the good thing was, because he said this to me in this particular way, because he literally pushed me back from that particular way of talking to him, what it meant was I now no longer have to worry that by me saying that I'm caused a problem for him. So I don't need to have any guilt or worry about him. And this is something I value very much in this particular person. He will not take it if someone is trying to run a number on him or trying to dominate him or patronize him or anything like that. And that in and of itself is a very useful reminder for me, and I think for a lot of people, to not let people do that to us. But I then went away and feeling a little bit uncomfortable about this and thought, my God, why did I do that? And why is it I more commonly do that with this particular person than with other people? Now, the second question is obvious because I care about that person very much, and I'm kind of over-invested in their choices around their well-being. But the other aspect to it that I realized was that it was about ego. I'm somebody who is very, very fortunate to, in my early life, be exposed to a natural health upbringing, which means I know stuff about natural health because I've learned about it from an early age. I've experienced it. I've practiced it. I've fallen off the rails with it. I've gone off and lived on Kentucky Fried Chicken and red wine at 10 o'clock at night. I've explored it from a number of angles. And I actually know a lot about it from personal experience and reading and research and so on. So I'm a little bit of an armchair authority on it in my own life, but not as a kind of an expert or someone who would try and teach other people. That's fine. And that can be useful sometimes if someone wants to ask my advice. But it's not fine if I allow that to feed my ego and turn me into one of those really annoying people that looks down their nose at everybody else and says, I know the truth, you don't. I know better than you. You need to listen to me. Oh, you should or shouldn't do this or that or the other, which I don't know. If somebody has a particular situation with their health, I don't know nearly enough about it to be able to advise them. I'm not a professional. I don't believe I'm professional, but that doesn't alter the fact that, like all human beings, I've got some conditioning in me which is about bolstering my own ego. And some of that conditioning can creep out in a situation where I am, let's say, in a stress reaction. And in the case of this particular person who I care about, I was in a kind of low-level stress reaction because I was frightened for his health. I was frightened that something might happen to him, that I might lose him, that he might not be in my life anymore. And that kind of triggered in me this particular ego-led way of behaving by saying, "Oh dear," which sounds parental, condescending, rude, basically rude and out of order, but actually not genuinely coming from a place of wanting to control the other person, coming from a misplaced pattern of behavior picked up from parents and other adults as a child, which is that when you're concerned about somebody, you adopt that kind of patronizing, paternalistic mode and style. And when I was a child, that's what was common. And funnily enough, I've actually done video sessions with clients where, I don't know if you heard of John Heron's 6-category intervention analysis. It's a fantastic model. And if you are a manager or a leader or a facilitator or a coach or a parent, it's a really useful model, because in that model, we look at what is my intention when I say something to somebody, also known as an intervention. Well, what's my intention, and which intervention do I actually use for that communication, and does it match? And there was a hilarious situation with one client where we said, okay, let's do a few role plays with you speaking to me as if I'm one of your people that reports to you in the way you normally would. And we're going to video record it and we're going to play it back. And then for each thing that you said, we're going to ask, what was your intention? Which of the 6 intentions did you have? And then which of the 6 interventions did you actually use? And the funniest one was where he said to me, I was kind of role-playing one of his people, he said, "You should be really proud of yourself for what you've just done." Okay, so we came back and we watched it. And I said, what was the intent? He said, the intention was to encourage them, to help them feel good about themselves, to congratulate them. I said, okay, which intervention did you actually use? And he actually used the intervention with the tone of voice and the gestures and the facial expression of the one where you're actually reprimanding somebody. So he used a reprimanding style of communication where the intention was to give an encouragement to the person. So you could see there's a complete mismatch. And actually, this client was a really good sport. He said, "Can I take the video home and show my family?" I said, "Well, if you really want to." So he took it home and showed his family this whole series of communications that he'd made, many of which had a mismatch between his intention and the way he actually did the communication. And he came back next time and he said his family loved it and turned to him and said, "Yeah, that's what you like all the time. That's what you always do." And apparently they all laughed around the dining table, which was a great family situation that they could laugh at it. So this was the situation for me where my intention was to be loving and supportive and containing. And what I actually did was to be really patronizing, pompous, annoying in the situation, albeit just for a few seconds. And of course, because I am who I am, I then analyze that up the wazoo, and then I turn it into a podcast episode. So there you go. And I think that also illustrates the fact that whatever happens in our lives, whatever embarrassing things we might do, there's always an opportunity to unpack it, learn from it, connect it back to some other piece of wisdom that we have, and then maybe share it with other people. So I hope this has been an interesting episode for you, and just to kind of underline really another aspect of it in relationship to natural health. I think a lot of us are exploring natural health now, particularly in the wake of the last few years. We've said to ourselves, let's not rely entirely on Western medicine. Let's have a look at natural health. Let's explore it. And a lot of people have been studying it, and there are those of us who've been connected to it for many years and many decades. So when we reach that point where we do feel like we know something about it, it's a good note to self to remember, don't turn into a pompous, lecturing, annoying, condescending nuisance for other people, because it doesn't help. It's not a contribution. It's not a gift. So thank you for listening. That's all for Truth and Transcendence for today. Please give a 5-star rating. Tell your friends. You know what to do. The show is spreading worldwide. Last time I looked, it had 102 countries where it was being enjoyed. And we're in the rankings for more countries all the time. So please do help spread the word. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.